Good morning and welcome everyone to the 6th thematic workshop in the Debuting project. Today's theme is Sustainable Business Development. This will be the last workshop in this series. The agenda for today looks like this. We will start with one lecture and one conversation, followed by a break, and after that I will have a conversation with the CEO of a small and medium-sized company. After a second break, we will meet live in Zoom for Q&A with all our 3 speakers for today. I will now present our speakers. Dr. Rachel Palmén is currently a senior researcher at the Internet Interdisciplinary Institute in Barcelona, Spain, where she forms part of the Gender and ICT research program. Her current research interests include gender equality and science, specifically looking at the implementation of inclusive gender equality plans and policies from an intersectional perspective. She has worked on various European Commission-funded projects. Rachel is currently coordinator of Inspire, the European Centre of Excellence and Inclusive Gender Equality in Research and Innovation, a Horizon Europe project for €5 million over 4 years with 14 partners in Europe and Latin America. Mikael Jonsson has a PhD in economics. He is a researcher at Karlstad University. His research resides in the interface between business development, service design, corporate social responsibility, and sustainable development. For example, to understand how the mechanisms in economic theory are affected when the perspective on value creation is broadened from purely economic ones and instead focus on the relationship between the economic, environmental, and social dimensions of sustainability. Dimensions which often contain business development opportunities that are neglected. Mattias Dyberg is the CEO of Elvenite Company. He has long experience within the IT industry and has had several C-level positions in well-known companies such as Capgemini, Every, and Visma. He has experience from several startups as well as larger established global organizations. Mattias describes himself as a dedicated leader who loves to take organizations and co-workers to the next level. So, welcome to today's workshop.
Hi, so I'm Rachel Palmén. I'm a senior researcher based at the Internet Interdisciplinary Institute in the Open University of Catalonia. I form part of the Gender and ICT research programme, and I'm here today to talk to you about inclusive gender equality plans and policies in research and innovation from an intersectional perspective. I'm going to speak a little bit about the EU policy perspective. I'll speak a little bit about gender equality plans and the shift to inclusive gender equality plans. I'll speak a little bit about the typology of different interventions that can be carried out for a more inclusive gender equality in research and innovation. Specifically, we'll look at the different topics of careers, of culture and well-being, of funding and knowledge, as well as institutional transformation. And I will end the talk really with highlighting some useful resources that you can go to for further information if you're interested in the subject. So in terms of the EU policy framework, well, the European Commission, European Union have financed gender equality in research and innovation for many years now. They've financed a whole range of different structural change projects through the framework Programme 7, through Horizon 2020, through Horizon Europe, where over 200 organisations have been funded to implement structural change. Having a gender equality plan is also now an eligibility criteria to receive funding. Now, this has had a major impact as various organisations, performing organisations, research funding organisations throughout Europe, if they came from a country where national legislation meant that they did not have to have a gender equality plan, perhaps it was something that they were not really developing. And so this being eligible for receiving funding from the European Commission has meant that various different organisations have now got a gender equality plan. Now, the impact of these gender equality plans is being investigated at the moment. So it's not enough to just have a plan, because perhaps an organisation will just have a plan and then they're not actually implementing any kind of intervention that has real change. But at least at the moment, various different organisations that before and didn't have a plan have now a plan, so that they're eligible to receive research funding. Now, whilst the European Commission have for many years recognised gender inequalities in research and innovation, there's been a great push over the last 5 years to really tackle other axes of inequalities. So, for example, in 2020 and 2021, the European Commission adopted 5 different strategies to really try and create the conditions for a more equal union of member states. So what they've done is they've published the LGBTIQ equality strategy from 2020 to 2025, the gender equality strategy building on lots of previous work that they've been developing from 2020 to 2025. And then they have the strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities. And this is a long-term strategy that will be in place till 2030. They've also developed the EU Anti-Racism Action Plan from 2020 to 25 and the EU Roma Strategic Framework for Equality, Inclusion and Participation from 2020 to 2030. Now, this is really this was really pushed forward with the last European Parliament. We don't know how this next term will take forward this equalities work, but it's really important that you understand these sort of two sides to really understand where the push for inclusive gender equality has come from. So at the moment, really, inclusive gender equality plans are conceptualised really as trying to tackle different inequalities within research and innovation. It was a conscious decision to not go the route of different other Anglo-Saxon speaking countries, for example, the UK, United States or Australia, where the emphasis on interventions in research and innovation is really equality, diversity and inclusion strategies, initiatives, interventions. There was a conscious decision by the European Commission to really foreground gender and not lose the work that has been done to push forward gender equality in research and innovation. I think it's really important that we take this in mind when we think about the push towards inclusive gender equality. Now, the European Commission has recently carried out some work looking at what has been the impact of gender equality plans. It's developed a whole different range of policy briefs. And quite interestingly, I'm just going to highlight or foreground some of the issues that they've highlighted when thinking about intersectionality. So, the EC has committed to supporting the development of inclusive gender equality plans to advance equality, non-discrimination, inclusion of all individuals within higher education and R&I organisations. And it's quite interesting how they recognise in their policy brief that the actual number of actions across member states that address other characteristics, other protected characteristics beyond gender equality, and from an intersectional approach in R&I is actually very small, but it is growing. So it's really an aspirational policy. Inclusive gender equality and gender equality plans from an intersectional perspective is a policy approach where different organisations are trying to begin to implement something. So at the institutional level, intersectional approaches are still really at the initial stages of development and are not widespread among research organisations and higher education institutions. And there are several key challenges for the implementation of inclusive gaps due to a range of interacting factors related both to the national policy framework and the legal framework. So, for example, data protection issues in terms of collecting data regarding protected characteristics is often one of the biggest challenges that different research performing organisations face. It's also a challenge at the national level, but this does not mean that we shouldn't try and create different interventions to really push forward different underrepresented minority groups, interventions that can help underrepresented minority groups within research and innovation achieve career progression, or as well as access research and innovation organisations. So we can see how different actions are being implemented. So we really need to share knowledge of what is being implemented and how successful that is. We need to be a little bit creative about how we look at this. So in terms of the typology of interventions, what I thought, given the situation really, we can't really present research that's a comprehensive research overview of intersectional gender equality, of inclusive gender equality plans from an intersectional perspective throughout Europe, because these are these are small efforts that are currently being made. So, but what we can do is look at what's being done in different areas, in different settings, from the United States to Australia to Europe as well, and look at what is the evidence base for these different types of interventions and how can this impact on underrepresented groups within research and innovation. So this is what we're really trying to do in this presentation. So in terms of careers, we'll look at affirmative action, we'll look at mentoring and coaching, and we'll also look at strategy and policy change. In terms of culture and well-being, we're looking at training and development, and this is really a focus on unconscious bias training. In terms of funding, we'll look at scholarships and grant awards, how different funding streams can be biased in allocation, and what can we do to try and mitigate this. We're also looking at research assessment. So we'll go through various different interventions that have had an impact in terms of mitigating bias in the assessment process. We'll also briefly touch on institutional transformation. So this is at the organisational level. How can we really take a comprehensive, holistic approach for a greater inclusive gender equality? And we'll also look at knowledge. What are the implications for knowledge production? So our first thematic area in terms of career development, in terms of recruitment, promotion and leave policies. Well, there's various different interventions that have been implemented. So for example, in terms of recruitment, we can see how affirmative action has proven to reduce discrimination against women. Here we have an interesting article where Byrene and Masklet, they look at the effects of affirmative action in terms of gender bias, and they come out quite positive and say that it does have a positive effect, reducing discrimination against women. There is also evidence to suggest that it has the contrary effect, and it's been quite controversial. But I think it's an interesting example to try and see how we can have a real impact. And in terms of mentoring and coaching, it's very interesting because quite like the European Commission and the structural change projects, the Advanced Scholar Programme funded by the National Science Foundation in the United States have funded an advanced IT programme which looks at institutional transformation for a greater gender equality in STEM disciplines, that's science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And they have a strand of their programme which is looking at pushing forward taking forward an intersectional approach. Now, this is very, very interesting. So one of their programs looked at how to enhance the visibility, the professional visibility of minoritized scholars. And what they found, interestingly, was that all groups perceived the program to be valuable, promoting well-being. It reduced isolation, it opened doors and encouragement, as well as provided career development guidance, peer support, and safe space. It also increased awareness throughout the organisation for the importance to give increased visibility to minoritised scholars. I think this is a very interesting example to how to really promote career development of underrepresented groups within higher education institutions. We also have an interesting example from Ireland. Here we can see in this article, Rochelle Fritsch, Alison McIntosh, Nicola Sturks and Marion Boland, they look at a funder's experience of addressing gender balance in its portfolio of awards. They implemented a very innovative intervention where they asked universities, higher education institutions who were applying for funding to actually put forward an equal number of men and women to be eligible for the Starting Investigator Research Grant Programme. They did not change the evaluation process. They only asked for an equal pool of people that the university put forward for this programme. And you can see here by the numbers, I mean, it's quite impressive. So, for example, in 2015, when the Gender Initiative was introduced, it's led to a 22 percentage point in the increase of female award holders compared to the 2013 call, where there was no gender initiative in place. So I think this is a very interesting example to show what funding organisations can really do to push forward for gender equality in research and innovation. Now, in terms of culture and well-being, unconscious bias training is often an intervention that's seen as quite attractive for numerous different reasons. It's seen as a very tangible intervention that can have an impact. And because it also, I think the attractiveness of unconscious bias training is that it shows that we all have biases. So we're not singling anybody out. And I think this is part of its attractiveness. But it's very interesting. This research done by Doyen Atawalungun, Tinu Cornish and Fatima Tresh, they really look into how it works and how could it be made better. So what they say is unconscious bias training is effective for awareness raising by using an implicit association test followed by a debrief or more advanced training designs. They actually claim that unconscious bias training can reduce, but it's unlikely to eliminate it. And they say that evidence for changing behaviour is actually quite limited, and there are possibilities of backfiring. Now, they suggest that to carry out unconscious bias training, that longer trainings are more effective. We need an increased sophistication of an approach, how it can have a longer impact, and how combining awareness of unconscious bias with the effects and tools, with different effects and tools, we can reduce its effects, but that can last up to 8 weeks. So I think this is a very, very interesting report that I would suggest and recommend that you look into. And similarly, this was an intervention where they used a video intervention and they tried to measure the malleability of gender bias. They say that there was an increased awareness of a bias, which reduced gender bias, but they flag up that there's a real need to not only use a video to raise awareness, but it needs to be combined with a much, much bigger program. So the bias literacy program was supplemented with an educational module that encouraged a growth mindset about the ability to change bias. Now, this was very important in their research because they found that people felt helpless. So people could see the pervasiveness of bias and felt, well, if it's so pervasive, we can't do anything to change this. So their research is very, very important because it's linked with this growth mindset. So it needs to be combined with educational material that shows, well, actually, bias might be pervasive, but there are actual things that we can do that can reduce its impact and that it can be tackled. And in terms of funding, so in terms of scholarship, grant awards, etc., it's really important to look here at this research carried out by Biagini, by Lerena, Ocalanosel, and Osel, demonstrated how the different makeup, the gender diversity of research consortia can actually have an impact on funding decisions. Now, this is within a multi-stage grant peer review process. So it was quite interesting that they found in their research that unfavourable evaluations were held for consortia that had a higher proportion of female principal investigators. Now, the gender effect was evident in evaluation outcomes of both panel members and reviewers. Whilst applications with a higher share of female scientists was less successful panel selection and, less successful panel selection, I'm just going to move this, and received lower scores from external reviewers. So I think this is a very, very interesting piece that really demonstrates some of the biases in terms of research funding allocation. Now, what can be done to really try and counteract this? I think the Irish Research Council has done some very, very interesting work in this field. In 2014, that's 10 years ago, they actually introduced a process to blind applications and the assessment process to gender. So the Irish Research Council staff and stakeholders, they believe that this gender blind process has made a considerable contribution to increasing the award rates for women. A survey evidence also found that a large majority of applicants are in favour of gender blind assessment. And there is also encouraging evidence within the reviewer community that assessment processes have improved, with 78% indicating their belief that assessments have been more gender blind in the last 5 years. We have another very interesting example of how research assessment can be more sensitive to gender. So, for example, the Swedish Research Council, since 2012, the gender equality observations have been carried out regularly by the Swedish Research Council. These meetings are a central part of the process for allocating research grants. Positive discrimination in borderline, they've developed a whole report on this process, which I think is very interesting. And what it consists of, including a gender observer into their research panels, and it is their role to flag up when panel members are discussing something that A, might not be relevant, and B, might be gender biased. So they found that positive discrimination in borderline cases was rarely discussed. And reviewers in several groups with natural and engineering sciences and medicine and health did use concepts and expressions that differed between women and men, respectively, when speaking about their merits and personal abilities. Now, I think this experience is very, very interesting because it has been demonstrated just that the very fact of having a gender observer within these panel meetings means that people who engage in these meetings have this at the forefront of their mind when discussing uh, um, the merits of candidates. So I think this is a very interesting example. Another intervention that's quite a simple intervention, but it's shown to have a different impact in various different in different sectors, is this idea of structured free recall and assessment. Now, what does this mean? Well, they use the evaluation criteria as a guide, and evaluators spend, for example, 5 minutes just noting what are the positives of a candidate and 5 minutes noting the negatives of a candidate. And they just use these lists when discussing the candidates. So it's quite a simple approach. But what they have found is in laboratory experiments, structured free recall did reduce bias against female professors teaching quality, and it has also been successfully demonstrated to reduce bias against female leaders as well as bias against black male managers. So it's proven to have an impact in lots of various different settings. So I think this is why this is so interesting. And now, if we think about like a comprehensive approach, so gender equality plans, inclusive gender equality plans, really try and tackle and push forward institutional transformation. So if we actually think about how this can be achieved, again, in the United States, part of this stream that looks at pushing forward an intersectional approach to gender equality in organisations that are working with STEM, what they have found is that to push forward for institutional change for underrepresented minority women in STEM, they've found that creating accountable leadership is key. So leaders need to be held accountable for the different types of interventions and also the impact. So the implementation of the impact of the intervention, the correct implementation of the intervention, and that has led to a better outcome. They've also looked at how to identify climate zones, so which are the areas which are more welcoming, and those areas within campus, for example, which are not so welcoming at the disciplinary level as well. They talk about how it's so important to collect the data, so understanding the numbers game. They talk about overcoming epistemological hurdles. So how we've also got to take a qualitative approach to investigating underrepresented minority women in STEM, really because we need to listen to people's experiences, because the data, it's very difficult to generalize from a quantitative perspective because the numbers are often much lower. So I think this is very interesting. And also the need to promote community structures, so support networks within organizations to really push forward this institutional transformation approach. Now, if we then think about how each organisation can engage in structural change, we've also got to factor in the broader research ecosystem. Now, I think this is really, really interesting because if you've been listening to the presentation, we've looked at specific interventions by research funders, for example, that have had an impact in terms of research performing organisations. So we really need to take this holistic, systematic approach. So this was, again, another interesting intervention that was developed, looking at equity in STEM in disciplinary differences and context. And what they found was that while systemic change approach can be rooted in individual institutions, the partnership model of institutional transformation is absolutely key. They look at the institutionalization of gender equality initiatives and how the increases in the number of tenured women faculty in science and engineering disciplines, as well as the increases in numbers of women in faculty and administrative leadership positions, could be really honed down to this intervention that was looking at developing effective partnerships in this area. And then if we think about institutional transformation at the departmental level, this is very, very interesting, because if we think that gender equality plans often operate at an organisational level, at the university level, but if we actually really think about who has the power to hire, to promote and fire, this is often at the departmental level. So the work of Sharon Bird and Melissa Latimer really hones down at the different scope of different types of interventions. So what they suggest is how to link gender equality goals at the university level, but with unit-specific instrumental goals. For example, how to increase the transparency of the promotion and the tenure process. This has been shown to be a successful strategy. Also, the departmental approach programme between 2005 and 2011, that we saw that women's representation among all tenured and tenure-track STEM faculty rose from 18.9 to 20.9%. Women in upper-level administration positions also rose. Female deans rose from 37 to 0.5 to 50%. And this is really reflected throughout all the different levels of the department. Now, if we've really been talking about gender equality in terms of representation to date, you know, in the presentation, but I think what's really, really interesting as well is to look at how to integrate a sex and gender perspective into research content and innovation content. Now, this research carried out by Jenna Haverfield and Cara Tannenborn is a 10-year longitudinal study and evaluation of science policy interventions in promoting sex and gender, so the content in health research. What they suggest, what their findings demonstrate, was just by introducing the criteria of integrating sex and gender into research content proposals, the proportion that reported integrating sex analysis rose from 22% to 82%, and gender from 12% to 33%. Their research also highlighted how applications that scored highly for integrating sex and gender were much more likely to be funded. So I think this is very interesting. And I think a very interesting element of all of this that to date has not been widely explored is this diversity innovation paradox in science. Hofstra and colleagues really carry out research and analysis that shows how underrepresented groups produce actually higher rates of scientific novelty. Whilst this may be the case, their novel contributions tend to be devalued and discounted. So, for example, novel contributions by gender and racial minorities are taken up by other scholars at a lower rate than novel contributions by gender and racial majorities. And equally impactful contributions of gender and racial minorities are less likely to result in successful scientific careers than for majority groups. Now, as I said, this is an area I think that needs to be researched further, but I think it's fascinating because it really brings together underrepresentation of certain groups within research and innovation with the idea of the thematic areas that they specialise in. And it brings up various different issues that, despite the fact that underrepresented groups are actually producing more novel research, they continue to be undervalued within the research and innovation system. So I think here would be very interesting to carry out further research. Now, I'm just going to speak very, very briefly about where you can go to try and for more resources to look at inclusive gaps from an intersectional perspective. Now, the gender equality in academic and research, the GEAR tool is the go-to place. So if you want to develop a gender equality plan for your research performing organisation, it's got really great resources. It's got examples from all over Europe and beyond throughout the different phases of developing a gender equality plan. throughout audit, throughout developing the plan, throughout monitoring, throughout implementing, as well as evaluation. And it also has a section of how to integrate an intersectional perspective into gender equality plans. And I'll speak to you very briefly about the Inspire Centre, the European Centre of Excellence for Inclusive Gender Equality in Research and Innovation. This is a Horizon Europe project that I'm currently coordinating. It's a research and innovation action. It's a €5 million project, and we started the project on the 1st of October in 2022, and the project will run until the 30th of September 2026. So we're roughly halfway through the project. And the main objective of Inspire is really to establish a world-class European Centre of Excellence to streamline access to knowledge and expertise across research and innovation throughout the European research area, as well as provide thought leadership and direction in the design, implementation, and evaluation of inclusive gaps from an intersectional perspective. So we've got lots and lots of different, I think we've got 40 deliverables planned throughout the project. I'll just quickly speak about the structure of the project, which I think is quite interesting. So we've chosen 4 main thematic areas to look at within this project. We're looking at sustaining change, we're looking at widening participation, we're looking at intersectionality, and we're also looking at innovation. Now we have 2 different consortium members who are responsible for each of these thematic areas. We have 4 different external experts linked to each of these knowledge and support hubs. And then we have 3 communities of practice. Now, these communities of practice are research performing organisations or research funding organisations that are working together in each of these 3 thematic areas to really implement an inclusive gender equality within their organisations. So we're producing various different support packages. Here you can see we're producing 5 different support packages. All of this work is online and available to everybody. And we're also producing open training units. We've got our first open training unit, which is becoming an Inspire Change Catalyst, but we've got a whole other range of different open training units. I think we've got 3 online at the moment, but we will have 10 online by the end of the project. You can see here the website. Feel free to go on and have a look around. We've also pledged to make all the research that we carry out, it's all open access, so it's all on Zenodo. It's also on our results section of the web page, so feel free to go there and have a look at the different reports that we've been involved in writing. Okay, so that's everything. So feel free to send me a message if you'd like any more information, and thank you very much.
Hello and welcome again. I will now have a conversation with Mikael Jonsson.
Oh, hi.
You are a associate professor at Karlstad University and you have your PhD in economics.
Right.
And your research interest lies in the interface between business development, service design, corporate social responsibility and sustainability.
Yeah.
And since today's topic is sustainable business development, I would like to start with asking you, what would you say is sustainable business development from your perspective?
Well, thanks for the question. I would like to say that there's a paradox inherited in this. First of all, I think that we will never reach a sustainable stage, but we can become more or less sustainable. So for me, sustainable business development is around understanding what this concept or label is all about. And I think that companies today have been too much focusing on their internal processes and too little on what consumers, society, and so on think, desire, need, request.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that we have too much focused on profit and profit at any expense,
Mm-hmm.
which means that we have neglected or capitalized environmental and social aspects.
Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit further?
Yeah, but think about when we assess success with something, we are trained to see what kind of clothes we are afford to wear, or what kind of car, or how we live. And success is measured by that, and not so much about our environmental and social concerns. And this is a pattern that we can sort of observe also in companies.
You are interested in how the mechanisms in economic theory are affected when the perspective on value creation is broadened from a purely economic to instead of focus on the relationship between the economic, environmental and the social.
Yeah.
And that's also connected to what you just said.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you maybe go a little bit deeper in that?
Yeah, but I think that when we, in companies, when we make decisions, we think about profit and wealth, and we tend to see that we need to capitalize certain resources to get to our goal. A few years ago, or 2015, so it's some years ago, we wrote a paper, my colleagues, Rickard Reine and I wrote a paper about this, and we said that maybe it's time for us to start thinking about how we can capture environmental and social aspects as well. We said that we instead of focusing on traditional wealth as profit, instead talk about the value we create from a financial, social and environmental perspective, and the harm these decisions make. Maybe we can find a better way to balance what we mean with profit, but not at any expense.
Have you in your research seen good examples on how small and medium-sized companies have implemented issues around corporate social responsibility and also sustainability in their internal organization, in innovation processes, in business models and in business relations?
Maybe I would like to remind us that I don't believe that we will ever reach sustainable stage, but we can become more or less sustainable. And from that point of view, we can see certain aspects of a company that could be or could have become more sustainable today than it was yesterday. And from that point of view, we can see that there is companies, small and medium-sized companies that succeed in some aspects but fail in others. And in most cases, these companies, small and medium-sized companies that have a sort of sustainability focus or interest in contributing more to a more sustainable future, they are driven by core values. They think that this is important to them. And that sort of shapes or forms how they make their decision. And from that point of view, we can point out a lot of small and medium-sized companies that sort of, in some aspect, are more sustainable.
Yeah, you mentioned that you think we will never reach a sustainable stage. Can you maybe explain a little bit more what you mean by that? And that's quite a critical or maybe also pessimistic view on, what
when I lecture on this, I talk about resourcefulness. I say to my students that somehow we need to capitalize natural and social resources to generate wealth or profit or whatever label we decide to make. And from that point of view, we at some stage will sort of harm environmental or social aspects to generate financial value or social value or environmental value. So for me, the problem is that when we talk about sustainability, it's like thinking about Eden or Nirvana or something, a glorious place that we will never reach, or at least not to my knowledge will reach.
But you think we can get a little bit closer to that?
Absolutely.
And what I mean, would you say that companies today miss a lot of potential because of not maybe working towards that vision at least?
That's what I think. And when I lecture on these things, I say to my students that the social dimension is kind of the most obvious shortcoming. I mean, when we talk about value and wealth and profit, we have money, krona. When we talk about the environmental dimension, we have kilowatts, liters, and that sort of labels that we can translate to krona, money. So we can set targets to reduce or increase our usage of the environment. But in the paper that I mentioned earlier, we said that this concept, environmental, social, and economic, is called a triple bottom line. And we said in our paper that this concept is slightly crippled. And that is because the social dimension is difficult to translate into comparable measures. I mean, even if we say that we have as many men and women and we have the same salaries and we have a fair deal in our companies, Me Too showed us that we do things that are not equal or fair. And this is things that we cannot translate into krona. And that is a problem that we need to capture. And I see that companies that try to become more equal, try to understand more how they can change or transform in order to become more equal, tends to be more resourceful, more focused on things that are lies beyond the social dimension.
What aspects would you like to put in, or would you like to see to be put into the dimension of social sustainability?
In service management, we for a long time have said that a good service focus on its technical and functional aspects. Recent research has added that we have emotional and relational aspects as well. And when we consider an experience or something that we bought, we not only think about the technical and functional, but the emotional and relational aspects are sort of part of our assessment. And I think that if companies become more skilled in capturing the relational and emotional aspects, they can develop their business proposition to become more attractive, useful to consumers. And I think that today we see a lot of consumers that are actively searching for channels that through which they can buy or consume things. And therefore I think that it's important for us to also start seeing how the social dimension actually is important. Today we are trying to develop a new research project where we try to understand how equality can actually drive better business. Understanding the needs not just of half of the population, but the entire population can help us to develop a business that are more attractive. And I mean, from that point of view, the social dimension, equality and so on, are essential.
Is that mainly focused on gender equality, or are you also talking about a broader, like, or more intersectional perspective on equality?
A broader perspective.
Okay, yeah.
This university is situated at the Kronoparken. That is an example of a very multicultural community. So I see that we have a lot of multicultural needs, competences and so on that we can utilize in a better way.
Would you think that we are good at that today, or should we, I mean, if we really look at the local environment here, how do you think the university could maybe become better at also reaching out to those parts of our city here?
Oh, this is a tricky question, and probably I'm not the best one to talk about it, but I see that we can do much more, and that's what I think. And the mechanisms for such change is learning more about each other, understanding each other much better, and some sort of new openness, curiosity.
How do you think we could help companies better understand the potential of integrating different aspects of sustainability into their everyday work?
Some years ago, I had a small sales company with 6 employees, and we focused on understanding our customers, caring truly for them, and that is a business strategy that sort of is kind of old. There was a strategist living 2,500 years ago, Sun Tzu, that said that if you desire something, focus on those things that open for that. Focus on the supply chain and the things that surrounds that, and go for that. And from that point of view, in my company, we never sold anything, yet we were very profitable. Care, relations, emotions are a key success factor. That's what I think.
In your research, do you see different aspects of gender, and what does that mean in relation to corporate social responsibility and also social sustainability?
Yeah, both yes and no. I see shortcomings, and how the traditional business perspective sort of fails to address women's needs or desires or the kind of information they need to make a decision. In most cases, when we try to sell something, we focus on technical and functional aspects, and fail to address things that women, sorry for sort of
essential.
I think that this context is far more complex than this, but if we should sort of simplify things, I think that if we understand the entire population's need and what the kind of information that they search for in order to make a decision, if we are supposed to buy something, what kind of information we need. I think that we fail to address social and emotional aspects of the sales, and that sort of makes it difficult for people to make business decisions.
Would you say that there is a risk that when companies think of gender, then they immediately think that women and men might have different needs or different interests as customers, for example, and then there is a way of kind of essentializing gender in a way that is problematic?
I think that the problem is that when we focus on the things that we believe is relevant, that means that we also set aside things that are irrelevant. When I started to do research on sustainable business, I was told that the social and environmental dimension was sort of not so interesting. This was 25 years ago. Irrelevant. And I think that this is the problem. We don't see, we are trained to be rational and search for profit, search for business. And Sun Tzu also said that if you are too focused on succeeding, you will also fail to see the true opportunities that lies within. And I think that if we understand the needs of the entire population, we are more equipped to address them and make the decisions appear less risky. I mean, if you're searching for answers and you don't get them, you will think that there's a risk in this, and your calculation says that there are too many things that we don't know. So let's not go for this. And if we instead understand what you are searching for, what kind of information you need, then we can sort of address that and create a business where we sort of capture also social aspects or emotional or relational and so on. And from that point of view, a buy could be more, what should we say, those English words, better well thought through.
Do you know if there are any good indicators or indexes today that actually manage to capture both the environmental but also the social aspects of sustainability? And have you seen those in your research?
In my research, I'm not so much into indicators, but when I lecture on these things, I say that the key performance indicators are those that truly makes a difference. Meaning that if we, like I mentioned, salary and business positions and so on, that seems not to work to really understand equality aspects. So a key performance indicator is better searched and found by those that need them. So I try to avoid to say that there are 25 key performance indicators that work for everyone.
The debuting project that this workshop is part of is mainly about policy change. And what kind of policy change do you think would be needed to strengthen and also fasten up the process of companies becoming more sustainable and maybe also inclusive?
A few years ago, we published a paper on public policies. And one of the kind of pessimistic conclusions of that project is that even though we have policies, we have sort of organizational or social mechanisms that makes it possible for us to go against or neglect these policies. So maybe we need a policy against that then.
Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit further?
No, that was a joke. What I think is that we need to be more careful about. We need to be more careful about the core values that we have. And if we should stretch the conclusions of Sarah's and my research paper, I would like to say that if we created more fair, more socially balanced companies, I think that we could sort of build more on the core values that you and I, our organization and sort of have in common. And from that point of view, I think that policies are important, but core values are as important. Sorry for not giving you a proper answer.
From what you have seen, would you say that core values are discussed in a way in companies today that in a way makes them justice?
Yeah.
And I mean...
They search for legitimacy.
Yeah.
And you can sort of find attractive or tempting core values. At the university, we got the help of consultants to generate some core values. And if I would ask you about these core values, you don't know them because they're not yours. And that's the problem.
Yes. And what kind of work do you think is needed to make those core values be present in the employees' minds in their everyday work? What do you think is needed to make that happen?
I think this goes back to the starting of this conversation where we talked about relevance and so on. I think we are trained to neglect how it feels. And if we instead try to put the hand to the heart and sort of feel how it really feels inside, I think that could be a way to sort of operationalize this. Let's not forget the heart. Let's not forget the core values and so on. That's what I think.
Thank you. With those words, I want to end that conversation with you. I mean, if you don't have any last words, then I want to thank you so much, Mikael. And now we are going to a short break, and then we meet again in 15 minutes. I have with me now Mattias Dyberg, who is the CEO for a Värmland-founded company called Elvenite. And Elvenite is a consultancy firm with expertise and experience in digitalization and business support, specializing in the food and beverage industry. With technology and curiosity, they create growth and business value for Scandinavia's leading food companies. Mattias, you say on your homepage that you are making the food and beverage industry smarter. Can you maybe start by presenting yourself a little bit more and then maybe elaborate on this a little bit further?
Absolutely. Thanks. First of all, thanks for being here and being a part of the future startups. Hopefully we can get in Scandinavia and Europe. Yeah, my name is Mattias Dyberg. I have been the CEO of Elvenite for the last 5 years and hope to give you some insights and some foundings that we have done during the last years and upcoming. So what we say that we're doing the food and beverage industry smarter, and that's of course, I mean, can be quite bold, but what we mean by that is we're doing that together with our partners, together with our customers. So it's not saying that we are smarter than anybody else. That's super important. But we think that, I mean, the foundation of how we can do it smarter is to do together. And how do we do that? Yeah, you told us in the beginning that we are in the tech company, but we combine the technical expertise with data and business know-how with the domain knowledge in the industry. And I think that's super important has always been super important, but even more now when AI make its introduction into the business, because we need to realize the customer's visions, and then we'll see what the technique can do. And what we see right now is an industrialization of the service sector. 150 years ago, we saw the industrialization of the blue workers. Now we see the same thing in the white collars, and that's super scary for somebody, but we are right now in the middle of it, and we think it's super, super important. So what we try to do is to combine the domain knowledge of our customers to realize their visions and goals, and with our expertise in data and technical expertise, we try to make them smarter in order to stay tuned and relevant for the future businesses.
Mm-hmm. I found a quote on your homepage also that says the name Elvenite originates from our desire to symbolize both what we work with, processes, a continuous flow and movement, and a forward-thinking approach. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about what you put into those words?
Absolutely, and that's I mean, that's the foundation. I mean, what we are working with for our customers, mainly our customers is 100 billion company customers, and we work with their ERP systems. So we usually say that we work with their heart and their because the ERP systems, there is where all the information and data flows in order to get control of the company. So that's the flow that we actually, you need to find the different processes. It can be supply chain, it could be HR, it can be sales, it can be regulative processes that you need to stay tuned to. So that's super important. And when it comes to how we can realize the value is just to see what value do we have within the data and with our technical platforms.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Today we're going to talk about your journey with working with gender or gender equality issues and inclusiveness. Can you maybe start by explaining or telling us a little bit about how and why you started that process and what has made you to think about those issues?
I think, I mean, from the beginning when we started Elvenite, that was that was the foundation, because we thought that, I mean, when we start a company, we would like to include everything. Since we say that we would like to do business smarter, we of course need to be open-minded to realize that me, myself, or my partner doesn't have the answer of everything, right? Then we need to combine, and the more people we can get in that are aiming for the same purpose, meaning to get ourselves and our customers a smarter way of working, we need to have that approach. So I would rather say that many of the businesses, and I mean, if you study on university, you say that you should be transparent, you should be equality and all that kind of stuff. So everybody knows it, but we really believe in that one, and we have tried to connect this into our purpose. In order to realize our purpose and our vision, we need to be and have a gender equality in order to get different perspective into our future challenges and the problem and the challenges we have today.
Mm-hmm. Has this been an easy ride for everyone in the company, or is it sometimes also hard to convince employees or others in the company that these are important issues to work with?
I mean, for the new code, that, I mean, during the last 5 years, we have employed plus 50 students, I mean, from college and high schools. And they are, I mean, on top of these questions directly. And then, of course, I mean, after a while, you get stuck in your ordinary work. So we that have been working a lot, we say that we are too busy. We can't work with that one. So I think it's super important to have the communication and to stay tuned and be relevant and remind ourselves why we're doing this one. And not just reminding it due to the fact that this is important. Yeah, we know that, we have read about that, but also in practical examples, how that lead to a better and smarter business for us and for our customers. So because, I mean, we human are quite, I mean, we're quite simple. We would like to be seen, we would like to get attention, and we need to feel needed, right? So we need to combine this and work with this every day in our daily work. And that's super hard when you have deadlines, when you have customers that want more than we can deliver right now, when you're sick. I mean, if you need to choose between two things, that is super important. So all these kind of equalities is more like a compass for us to guide us to do hopefully the right decisions in a complex world, since it's always every day is a challenge and a fight against prioritizations, because there's many things that needs to be done and many things that is important. But what we need to do today? Yes.
Yes. Can you maybe go a little bit deeper in what you have done in this area, and also maybe what you're planning to do in the future, or yeah?
What we try to do first, I mean, we communicate a lot and talk. So not just communicate saying that this is important. We have it when we have coffee breaks, when we have quarterly meetings, when we meet in Scrum teams, or if we have just signed a new deal. Why is it important? And then once again, we need to connect it to our vision, what we believe in. We would like to do our customers smarter. And for us, it means a lot of utilizing the data in the right way with the AI and machine learning and that kind of tool. And when it comes to AI, it's super important that we get inputs from a variety, so not just stigmatized in one way of doing that. That's super important, because then if you get stuck into a tool that drives you to a wrong direction, it's super dangerous for the company. And that's even more dangerous right now, since most of the companies doesn't really know the power of the AI, since they are not a native data-driven company today. So for us, we feel both, and we have the knowledge, but we also need to be carefully how we guide our customers to make the right decisions. So that's what we try to do: communicate a lot, but also, I mean, see the need of different inputs in our methods. And an example of that is for our customers, since they don't really know what they're aiming for when it comes to AI and machine learning, they need to try and test. Meaning that we need to try, but we don't really know the full impact or the full what will happen. So then we need to carefully see what happened here. No, that was wrong. Or what happened if we add this data? What happened if we need take away that data? So it's more like another way of thinking that you have done in the past when it comes to IT investment, because then has been like, I have a requirement request, could be a long or short one. It needs to fulfill all these requirements, and then the IT company has said, here you have the system. But when it comes to AI, it's more like try and error. So it's a different mindset, and that different mindsets, then you need to have different experts because you don't really know what it is until you have tried it and tried different things from different angles. So that's why I think it's what we try to do when it comes to, it also has affect the equality of trying different things.
I'm just getting curious when you're speaking about AI. Do you see any risks also maybe connected to a gender perspective or a diversity perspective, in inclusiveness perspective?
Absolutely. If we are just male-driven in one direction, we have seen that a lot, and we can also see that. I mean, not as a businessman, but as a father. I mean, the polarization of the social network right now, and that's also happening in the businesses. So we need to take, I mean, a broader perspective and a social responsibility. And my belief is that, I mean, not most of the human beings go to work. At a job, we can actually make a change. It's good that we have politics, etc. I also vote, but I think that, I mean, what we can do as a company, we can actually do a lot as a company to change the world into a better direction.
What challenges would you say you have experienced in this kind of change work? And if you have experience from any challenges, how have you tackled them?
I mean, as a human in a more and more digital world, that's a challenge itself, because we see that we now not connect. We connect in a different way than we did in the past. And we human, I mean, we are humans. So what we try to do, I mean, the challenge that we have here is both what I said in the beginning, the polarization, and we human also take the easy way out. So we can say, yeah, we don't need to meet. This is fine. We try this one. We optimize the algorithm. We do the implementation. And I think that's a super dangerous way to go. So you need to be stay tuned on, have a dialogue and criticism, and actually ask question: is this really the right thing, or can we do it better, or have we? And also rethink a lot, since this is new for the whole society. Even if the algorithm itself, AI is since the early 50s, that's not new, but for us to adopt the technology, it is new. So the challenges is actually to understand this industrialization of the service sector and what that affect, not just as me, but also for the company. And once again, here is communication, training, be able to say that I don't really know anything, try, and then try again, and then ask other persons what they have done, and be bold to not succeed and try to see. So I think that's super important. Communicate and be more, not just say yes to everything, even if it's a perfect technical function. That's not the challenge we will have in future. It's more like, is it perfect for us human, not technical. And I think that we as a consulting company needs to provide that more to our customers in the future, and not just say this is perfect when it comes to technology implementation and application. We need to see, okay, what does this application and technical investment lead us to? So that's a challenge that we are in right now, and what we try to do is to train, to educate, to test both inside Elvenite, but also towards customers in customer projects, in order to get more knowledge about how does this work, what can we do, what can we not do, etc.
Would you say that the development and implementation of new technology, and also in connection to gender and inclusiveness issues, has in any way affected your business model in a way? I mean, our previous theme for the last workshop was business models and business relations. Have those issues that you're talking about affected your way of looking at your own business model in some way? I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
If that has changed our business model, or
yeah, the combination of new technology and the gender and inclusiveness perspective.
Not that much. I mean, more that what I see is that, I mean, since we are entering to a more and more digital world, that affects us as a company, but also me as a human. And that one, since we are in the middle of it, is quite hard to really know what it ends. So that's why we need to do as much as we can here and now. And for us as Elvenite, it's super important to stay tuned and actually take this as an advantage for us as a company to be even more successful in 2 or 3 years compared to our competitors. And that's why I think I mean, when I'm out and talk with a lot of customers, but also, I mean, partners and new colleagues, it's also, I mean, what type of business do you want to be a part of? And also, I mean, the customer, or the customers, what company would I like to do business with? And I think, in my opinion, is that, I mean, we can also see that worldwide, that it's not just to have a super duper product. It's more like how you are as a company. If you take more responsibility than just delivering a good product or services. And my hope is that we as a consumers try to put our money in these type of companies when we buy products and services in the future.
What benefits would you say that you see from this kind of change work that is maybe ongoing in your company, and you see it as quite self-evident that you should do those things, but what benefits would you say you can see from this kind of work? Maybe both socially, but also business-wise.
We see enormous of business opportunities and advantage. These, of course, I mean, since a lot of companies hasn't realized this yet, so we can actually, I mean, if we try to do it as best as possible right now, we can have an advantage in the coming 2, 3, 4 years to be the number one. And we have actually said that in our vision here for 2025 to 2028, that we would be the Nordic leader when it comes to implementing of infrastructure and AI and BI, which is quite bold, but we really believe that we will have our effort to be that type of company. So I see a lot of and the realization of the huge, I mean, we were talking about AI. AI is quite broad, but I mean, it's more like algorithms and utilize the data. That one, we have only seen the glimpse of what that can do, because 92% in my last research hasn't really started that transformation yet. We have a couple of native companies like Google, Amazon, Spotify, etc., but most of the companies hasn't started that journey yet. When they do that, they will have huge impact on what they can do and realize. When it comes to us as, I mean, as a company, I mean, of course, I mean, since we believe in gender equality, we have access to 100% of the labor market, which a lot of other company doesn't have. So that's of course a benefit for us. I mean, it doesn't really matter who you are, as long as you have the skills or the attitude and buy in on our vision, what we would like to do. Then you're more than welcome to join us in our journey. So I think both when it comes to, I mean, hire new talents, when it comes to utilize and get benefit from the transformation that we are in right now, and you need to stay tuned on that, and we'll see in a couple of years who will be the winners of this thing. And socially, as we were discussing before, the benefit there is that, yeah, what type of society would you want to have? But we've seen a lot of polarization. We can see in many areas. I think it's super important that we humans take responsibility and are open-minded and listen to different type of voices. And we as a company can do that because we believe that it's going to be good for our customers. But I think that's also one way of exemplifying how we can put that into the society and see maybe if this is working good for a company, maybe that works also good for the society. Is it hard? Super hard. Does it take time? Yes, but we need to constantly have a dialogue, but also, I mean, show good examples, not just saying what is good and right or wrong, showing with examples. And that's why I think it's super excited in Element, because we can see that we have grown a lot. We are profitable. And we are that because, I mean, I think we have the right mix and blended of not only super duper good employees, but also, I mean, how we are organized and try to help each other to be even better.
Would you say that gender issues maybe from the beginning for you was mostly a question of competence supply, or would you say that there were other reasons for you to see that this is an important area to develop? And has this has the view on what gender issues or diversity issues could mean for your company, has it changed during the years you have been running the company? I mean,
I think that, I mean, from the beginning, we didn't really, I mean, we believed in equality. And then, of course, I mean, during the last year, we have seen that is good, especially when it comes to AI and these type of work that we do. But for us at Elvenite, I mean, we're always trying to hire for attitude, train for skills, which is, a lot of people say that. But I mean, we really would like to have people that buy in on our purposes and the way we work, because competence you can get quite fast if you want to. But the attitude and the way of how to collaborate, that's actually you have that when you enter a company. So I will say that, I mean, it has strengthened our way of working during the last years, but we haven't changed the prioritizations or the equality, that type of thing on our agenda. We just see that this is actually working very well, and that's why I think we also have been nominated as the best workplace in Sweden 2 years ago. And we also, I mean, can see that we have an equality when it comes to gender on management level, etc. We have never had quotas, but we just looking for people that would like to drive on our purpose and have the right attitude. And also, we also believe in the team and collective way of thinking, since when time is tough, then you really need to have a strong team. You can always be strong if you're a super duper person yourself, but I mean, if the shit hits the fan, you need to have a network that carry out and help you. And that's what we try to do with our customers, but also internally at Elvenite.
Would you say that it, in some cases, might be tougher for a small and medium-sized company to work with those issues than maybe for a bigger company? And what has been your way to solve those challenges maybe?
I think in one way it's much easier to do it when you're a small company because you're easier to access. It's not that many people, and usually when you have a huge company like 10,000 or 100,000, you need to have a committee, and you are stuck in different way of working. So as a startup or a small company, it's more up to yourself. I mean, if you believe it, you can actually start from tomorrow or from today. That is just to constant work with that every day and not just let it be a good thing that is stored somewhere. And that's why I think it's super important for companies to really believe in this. If you don't believe in that, I mean, you believe in other things, and then you should do that as high priority and connect that to your purpose. Because if you connect this, if you have a purpose that is bigger than just financial terms, and you have a foundation, values, and if you think that equality is important to realize your vision, then you will get that by yourself almost. So I think it's easier for the small ones, startups and mid-sized company than bigger companies.
What do you think has given you the nomination as one of the best or the best employer in Sweden? I mean, did you get any specific reasons for why you got the nomination?
We actually won the prize, the first of Great Place to Work.
Won the prize.
Sorry, no, but I think that, I mean, we have a belief, we say what we believe in, and we do what we say. A lot of companies know all these things, what to do, but they don't do it in the daily work because they get drawn in other things. As I mentioned in our early conversation, it's so easy to say that, we take that tomorrow, or now I have this one. You really need to work with that, and if you really believe in this one, and you then it will happen. And then, of course, if we grow that we have done, then you need to show it in examples. So the new people that come in take this for natural things that just happen. So it's more to set the scene. I think that's important to set the scene and the climate. So and then once you have set the climate, it's quite easy to then of course you need to maintain that. But we have this right now, but we need to maintain it every day, because otherwise in a couple of years it won't be there anymore.
Before we end, do you have any advice to other small and medium-sized companies for how to both maybe start the process of working with those issues and then also maintaining it? You have already been into some things, but do you have any last advice on how to get started and
I think as we try to do to help our customer to be smarter in order to understand what they want with the company. First of all, of course, you need to make sure, what do you want with your company? I mean, you have already a business plan, but what is your vision and purpose? Try to find your purpose, because the purpose is more based on values, etc. And here, gender equality is a value. Either you like it or not, or you think it's. And then see if these type of questions will help you to your purpose. And then try to also, see, okay, what type of examples, how does this affect our companies? And not just starting with, this is hard to get the females into our industry, or it's so hard. Don't go there. See the potential. And just start with, imagine if we were and have all these unlimited resources from whatever. Start with there and not with this is hard. Then I think is my best guess. So connect the whatever you would like to do, if that's equality, to your purpose, and not just start with this is hard. Focus on the opportunities. That's my and why that's important for your company's survivor in the future.
Thank you. Those are great words to end this talk with. So I really want to thank you, Matthias, for your time. And yeah, this has been great, I think, for the partners in our project.
I hope so. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manuel.
Thanks.